So welcome everyone to our 9th grade parent workshop. We do appreciate all of you joining us tonight. We are hoping that this evening we can spend a bit of time sharing with you some strategies that might help your students, your children become more engaged and maybe a little more successful during the second marking period. We know that as we think about what's happening all around us and what is happening in the, with the pandemic and how students are interacting, that we do not have a really good for being able to get them involved. Is really to work on that and provide some strategies, some information to you all, and some better understanding of how things work at the high school level. So we appreciate you joining us. We're going to move through a bit of a presentation. We're going to do a part of it as a whole group, and then we are going to do a good bit of it in smaller breakout rooms so that you have an opportunity to ask questions. We have several staff members with us tonight to do that. So at this point, I just want to make sure that we have the information. So Miss Adamson, can you go to the next slide? So we'll just start off with just making sure you know who the administrative team is. So my name is Shelton Mooney. I am the principal at BCC. And Ms. Adamson, who is also on the call with us, is the 9th grade administrator and assistant principal. We also have several other BCC staff members on the call. Mr. Doug Nelson, who is one of our assistant principals and is on the call. And we have 2 of our counselors, Mr. Austin and Ms. Reveron. And I think that's all the staff we have.
Mr. Geisberts was also going to join us. I don't know if he's here.
Okay. Mr. Geisberts, I don't know if he's here either, but if he is, welcome. He is our pupil personnel worker. But we are here tonight to talk with you, to try to answer some questions for you, and also to provide you with some more information about how things work at the high school level and what we know right now. At this point, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Adamson to share some information. I do know also that if there's anyone who needed Spanish language translation, that we do have Ms. Reveron available and willing to go to a breakout room to provide this presentation in Spanish also.
And go ahead, Ms. Reveron.
Perdón, si ustedes necesitan que hablamos en español, por favor indica en el chat, también te escribí ahí y podemos ir en un salón donde podemos hablar español. Gracias.
Ms. Adams, may I ask you a quick question, please?
Yes.
Would you like me to not assign anyone to room 1 as we hold that and start with room 2, or should I utilize room 1 at this point?
Use room 1 only for Spanish speakers, and then everyone else can go to rooms 2 through 5 as people are coming in, and I should be in breakout room 3. Dr. Mooney is too. Okay. Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and again, thank you for coming. I am Vicki Adamson, the assistant principal in charge of the class of 2024. And so I am very appreciative that you are here tonight with us as we talk about ways that we're going to help students be more successful. And so our topic tonight is pathways to success in a virtual learning environment. Our agenda for tonight is that we're going to go through this general information session. And then at this time, Mr. Nelson, perhaps you can go ahead. Do we have any people in the Spanish-speaking breakout room yet?
Not currently.
Okay, so then Ms. Reveron can stay with us until that time. And if we don't have any Spanish speakers tonight, we can just divide up the breakout rooms in that way, but still leave breakout room 1 available. And so we're going to get into breakout sessions shortly so that we can be in smaller groups, and so that after our presentation, we can all engage in conversation and discussion with you about some of your concerns if we have not covered them, because we want to know what we can do to help you, to help your children be more successful. And so that's going to be the pattern for our session tonight. We'll move into breakout session shortly. We'll have a general discussion in those small groups. We'll take your questions and then we'll conclude the meeting. This slideshow will also be posted at a later date. So if you want to look back, we have some links embedded. You can access those links and get to the information that we're talking about tonight. So first, when you think about it, who is your child's counselor? This is a really important starting point for us. Many of you have probably already talked to your child's counselor, and your children have certainly connected with their counselors and heard from them. But it's going to be really important to know who you're dealing with, because the counselors play such a vital role in the life of a student. And we want to make sure that you see that, so that students are accessing this important resource. And Ms. Reverend, I invite you to jump in at any time, since you were head of the counseling department while we are on these slides, and since you're still here, if you want to add anything to what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did I do that? Okay. I came out of presentation. And so if you want to visit your child's counselor and set up a meeting, whether or not you or your child wants to talk to the counselor, you can email the counselor to request an appointment. And on the school's website, you'll find all the contact information. It's a direct link if you click on the counselor's name, and then you can email that counselor. And it's important to remember that counselors are advocates for students. And so in addition to just generally assisting with academic success, counselors are the ones who are really helping your student on the pathway to graduation. And that's going to mean different things for different students as some of them are pursuing different things after they graduate. So it's not just getting students to graduation, it's thinking about post-graduation as well. And what they're going to do after they graduate, that starts now. And the counselors are the guides, the best guides for that. They will help students build those schedules of classes that they take. They'll help students identify classes needed to earn a diploma. And we're going to talk a little more about that during the presentation later on. And they'll match students to electives they take. And finally, parents, it's important, if you want to talk to all the teachers, the counselors can help you navigate that and bring teachers together if you would like to have a meeting with your children's teachers. And so right now in a virtual world, that looks like another Zoom meeting. But when we are also talking about beyond the virtual world, counselors can set up those meetings so that you don't have to keep contacting people separately. Counselors are an excellent resource to help bring all the parties to the table to talk about your child and the success that you want to see. Ms. Reverend, would you like to add anything to any of that I said?
I think you summarized that very well. Thank you.
Okay. So right now we're talking about a student's identity. And you're here because you want your student to have an identity of success and focus. And we want all of those things too. We want your children to be very satisfied and happy at DCC. And so some of the things that we're going to cover, we're going to talk about class performance, because the grades they earn really contribute to their identity. Who are they? And performance on tests, like the MAP. We'll mention that a little later in the presentation as well. And their interactions with others, because this is a time that they're building relationships with teachers and peers. And if they were in a traditional school day, they would see people in real life, but now we're virtual. So we're going to try and talk about what that means too coming up. But all of these things contribute to your child's identity in school, and it's really important that you and they have a very good sense of what that means. So how is a course grade calculated? And this is an important slide to talk about, because right now we have just finished the first marking period. I believe just today in parent view, you should be able to see those grades from the first marking period. And this is the first high school quarter your children have completed. And so these grades are ultimately going to contribute to their GPA. I do want to point out that the grades that they earn during the quarter aren't included in the transcript. I'm going to ask if participants can mute themselves. Thank you. And so a student's transcript, and we'll talk about that later as well in the small groups. That transcript is made up of the combination of grades from the semesters, not the marking periods. So that might be a little confusing. The next slide hopefully will make it a little more clear. This is how semester grades are calculated. You can see that if a student earns a grade in the first marking period, you see those grades in the column, the first grade. The second grade represents the second marking period, and then it equals to the semester grade. That semester grade is what goes on a transcript. So colleges don't see marking period grades. And I do want to stress that because some parents are saying, my child did not do well in this first marking period. And the kid is saying, oh, I'm failing and high school is horrible. I want you to look at the column, the far right column, where if a student gets an E in the first marking period, notice the only way they could fail the semester is if they get another E in the second marking period. It is not an average. Students are able to do better. And so this is an important slide for students to see, to know that they can get it together, they can start pulling their grades up, and they can pull themselves out of it. The grades are set up to benefit the child. So we want to recognize growth, and we want them to know that, sure, you may have stumbled, but you can always pull yourself out of it. And there are only 2 permutations on this chart you will see where a student can earn a grade of an E. That's if they get 2 E's both marking periods, or if following the trend, and this is the only case where the trend goes down, if they get a D and an E. And so what we're talking about tonight is going to help prevent those instances, because that's not what we want to see. But I'm showing you this chart because this chart, hopefully you see the bright spot of how there's a lot to benefit from once students pull it together and do well as we move on. I mentioned MAP scores earlier, and some of you have already called the school to ask. MCPS has told us that the MAP scores will be available in the parent portal, and we are just told soon. And as soon as that happens, we will be on hand to help you interpret those scores if it's not clear to you when that comes out. And since we don't know what it's going to look like either, we will figure it out and we'll be on hand to help you. So if you remember when your students took the MAP test for reading and for math, MAP is that computer adaptive achievement test. And it tells teachers information about your child's performance. It basically says this is the level at which they are performing, and it informs the teacher to know how to choose materials for class that will help to teach your child. So if you have any other questions about MAP, you may be able to ask them in the breakout room, or you can contact me or someone out at the school later. And just 2 more slides before we go into our breakout sessions. And this one is about digital responsibility. And it's important because we know that in this world where people don't always use social media responsibly, and I'll keep it on the level like that, we want to make sure that our students know how to be responsible with digital devices and social media. And what's really important for them to know at this stage is that they have an identity that they are creating and crafting.
I'm listening to a conference, honey. Hold on.
That they are crafting with social media. And students should not post things that will hurt their reputation and reflect poorly on them. Students should also know that colleges and employers can look at that digital footprint that they're creating now. It might be difficult for your children to project that far and to know that people are going to look back at who they were now, but you know that these things that they do in the past are going to stay with them. And once something gets on the internet and gets out there, it is nearly impossible to erase. So this is a very important conversation to have with your children about what they post on social media, what types of things they're saying, and how they're using it, because it does reflect on who they are, and it's going to contribute to how people interact with them from here on out. And that last point, be kind and do no harm, if they use that as a mantra, then I believe they will be okay. So we can't stress this enough. And if you ever want any of us, the counselors, or me as their administrator, to become involved in conversations with them about digital responsibility, please do not hesitate to call us, because we know how important it is. And so finally, in terms of looking ahead for things that matter, in addition to that digital footprint that students are creating now, it's the transcript that's going to reflect their overall academic performance, that GPA that is a combination of all those grades that we just talked about, and the trends over time. What are they doing? Are they getting stronger? If they start off maybe having a hard time in a subject, by the time they get to 11th and 12th grade, maybe they have mastered that subject. And that trend is an important one, because it's going to reflect their growth, and they can speak to and write about that in letters of application to college. And so we also want to stress that well-balanced high school experience with academics and other activities. We hope that students are being diligent and getting involved in clubs and organizations, because we have them available for them. And we hope that they are finding some ways to have fun, because this is certainly, for the most part, we look up and it's like, this is not fun. So we hope that children are having fun, and that in addition to school, they can do something like clubs, extracurriculars, and things where they can just kind of breathe a little. And finally, reputation and character, those things count. And we hope that students are thinking about how they build their reputations. And one of the things that I think is important to note here is that when students are in class, we know that a lot of students aren't turning their cameras on. And I can't see everyone right now in this meeting, so I don't know how many of you have your cameras on or not. But when you are looking at a Zoom room, and you think about just seeing those dark boxes with the names across them, and the person, the teacher leading that, what are they seeing of your child? And so I know that students aren't necessarily comfortable turning their cameras on. So I'm going to say something in terms of a scaffold that you might suggest to your child to start using if they are not comfortable leaving their camera on the entire time. You might suggest that the student make sure that whenever they speak in class, they turn the camera on, so the teacher can make a connection with them and they with the teacher. One day they might need that letter of recommendation for college, for an employment. And the teacher is going to need to know more of them than that dark screen with their name across it. And you can also suggest that when they are in breakout sessions, they turn their cameras on. Every time they speak in class, if they ask a question, turn your camera on. So these are things that will help your child start making that identity, that positive identity, and engaging in school. So at this point, we are going to transition to breakout rooms. All of us who are going to be in the breakout rooms with you to finish the slideshow will be able to go back to any of the previous slides if we have time, and to answer any questions about things that we have already talked about that you might still want to talk about, in addition to what we're going to talk about moving forward. So we're going to pause now. And Mr. Nelson, are you ready to put everybody into breakout rooms? And am I assigned to breakout room 3?
I am ready. I'm just going to do a couple of details of framing so that everyone understands what's about to happen.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I just wanted to make an IB connection because we're an IB World School. And one of the things we teach our kids about is that there are many attributes of what we call the learner profile, or what makes a really well-rounded student. And one of those attributes is being a risk taker. Tonight was my attempt at being a risk taker and tackling breakout rooms, which I have never done before. But at this point in time, all of our guests have been assigned to one of 4 breakout rooms, room number 2, 3, 4, and 5. A little note to our facilitators. Dr. Mooney, you're assigned to room 2, Ms. Adamson, room 3, Mr. Austin, room 4. I believe as the host, I am not able to assign myself to room 5, but I should have the ability to toggle between all. So if you are someone who ends up in breakout room 5, if you could just have me a moment to make sure that everyone is in those groups, and then I will be there as soon as I can, so I can pick up breakout room 5 and we'll take it from there. And I think that's all Ms. Adamson.
Let me suggest that, well, you've already put people in breakout rooms for 5. So I was just going to say someone should stay behind. And if anybody continues to come into the session, but that's okay.
I think it's likely, Ms. Adamson, I'll hear that ding and they're automatically coming. So I will try to pay attention to that.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna open our rooms at this time. I hope everyone has an informative breakout session. Oh, and a reminder, we will not be coming back together. When your breakout room wraps up, you are done for the night.
And thank you all. Good evening. I am just waiting for everyone to join us in the breakout room, and then I'm going to continue screen sharing so that you can see the rest of the presentation. But before I do that, are there any questions that you have about anything that we talked about, that I talked about so far? Okay. So I am going to continue sharing my screen. And I'm going to go through the rest of the presentation, and then we're going to open it up to discussion and conversation. So I am not looking at the chat while I'm sharing my screen, so you can put things in the chat, but I'm just going to ask that you come back to them. If you want to put it in the chat as a reminder to yourself, and then I'll come back to it. So really, this is a really important point to make, that in a virtual setting, does your child have a dedicated place to work? Do they turn the camera on during class? And does your child ask questions during the class? These are some of the things I alluded to earlier. And having that dedicated place to work is really important, whether or not it's a desk, a table, a counter, somewhere that is dedicated for them to move to do their schoolwork. We find that this is really important, and the students who are being successful are doing this. So we would like to see all students find and create a dedicated workspace in their homes where they can work. Obviously, when students are in a school building, we create that space for them there, but they need to create it for themselves at home. And that whole point about turning the camera on, even if they don't keep it on the entire time, students can be strategic about when they turn the camera on so that they can start building that relationship with their classmates and especially with their teacher. And especially asking questions during class and making their identity known. Another point that we see is that submitting work has been a problem for some freshmen. I have talked to numerous parents who have said, I see my child working all the time. I know they're doing the homework, and then I see the zeros on their, in Canvas. And because students can't see it, they're not holding it, sometimes it gets lost in that virtual world. And so when students are creating work, completing work digitally, I'm going to recommend that they make copies of the work, that they create digital folders for their classes and color code them, name things appropriately so that they can find it in Google Chrome. If you want us to talk to your students about this, I'm going to come up, when I talk about TAP and some of the other resources, in addition to teacher resources, there are people in the building who can help your children set these things up if they haven't done so already. Even if a student says, man, I just need to see my counselor because I want to get more organized, they can ask those types of questions to be pointed in the direction that they need to get that help. And if a child isn't sure how to turn work in, ask the teacher and say, did you get my work? I wasn't sure if it went through. And the teacher's like, yes, I got it. And then the student knows, oh, then I did that right. Now I know how to turn assignments in. We have also seen that some students are successful submitting work for one class, but not for others. So it's important that they make sure they understand each way, depending on what type of assignment it is. If it's a Google Doc or if it's something that the teacher has embedded in Canvas, they might have different steps to go through, but pretty much once they learn how to do this, it's something that they'll know how to do. The other thing that's really important that we're seeing, and this is a really big deal. Right now, I think that a lot of students have told themselves, and a lot of us, that, you know, this can't go on forever. And right now, it feels like this is going on forever, right? And this is not a temporary thing. And even if hopefully it ends soon, and I'm hopeful that we can be back in the building soon, right now students still have to understand that they have to get ready for school. And they have to make that separation from, hey, I was just in my bed asleep, to now I'm a student in class learning. Get up, eat something, get dressed, gather your materials, go to a designated workstation. If your child doesn't already have this routine, it is really important that you talk to them about it, because going into the second marking period, this is a time where this very specific and simple routine is going to help make some changes in their behavior. I've seen some students, when I go to observe classes, I've seen students in the bed under the blankets with the computer. And I'm just thinking, I'm glad you have your camera on, but get out of bed. And so if your child doesn't have this routine, please begin by making sure they have this routine, just as if they were going to school. And I think that that might help them mentally engage. So don't underestimate the power of a routine. And with all of that, we know that students are stressed out. And these are some ways they can reduce stress. They can exercise and eat right. As I said, eat breakfast, drink water. When they're gathering their supplies, a water bottle or a bottle of water is something they should keep next to them while they're in Zooms so they can stay hydrated, because it's really difficult to sit in front of a computer all day. And I know that many of you out there know that, because I get tired of it. And they should also get enough sleep. I think this is on another slide, but I'm going to go ahead and say it here. We know that, oh, it's on this slide. I'll wait to get to that second to the last point. Students can also use relaxation techniques. Some teachers build it into their classes where they have a meditation at the beginning and the end of class, because teachers know that students are stressed. And so if the child likes some of the meditation techniques that the teachers use, then you might encourage them to use some of those at home in between when they're not even in class, just to get themselves in a right frame of mind. And this is what I was saying earlier. Take time for themselves, hobbies, something fun, so that they're just not in front of the computer and the screen all day. It is important to stay organized and stay on top of their work, because once they fall behind, students at this age feel very overcome if they are behind. It's like, oh my goodness, I'll never get caught up. So while we are here to help them, if they are behind, it's best to try to avoid falling behind. And then some of the best dynamics I've seen, parents have shared that they talk to their children every day about school and classes. And right now, since they don't get to talk to their friends as much, they might want to talk to you more and talk to family more about what they're doing and how to balance that digital world with the people they actually get to see and touch and be around. So don't underestimate the power of those family conversations. And this is a really important point that I want to stress. Help them take purposeful time away from digital devices. Put the phone down, close the computer, turn off the video games, even the television, and interact with others. Because unfortunately, this is the only way we can deliver school right now, and we don't have a choice, but it is a lot of screen time. And I know that at the end of the day, sometimes I just want to put the computer away. I don't even want to see it because I have been on the computer all day long. And I just think they can be doing something that they might enjoy better and that is healthier. But that purposeful time where you say, turn off that screen. And finally, they can seek out their counselor or teachers for support because those are important. This slide about study skills, again, staying organized. And for virtual learning, as I said, they can create digital folders. And those digital folders, you know, when the student first starts to create them, they might not have the knack, but then, you know, these students, they've been doing digital things longer than, you know, as long as they've been alive practically. So I think they'll get the knack of it very quickly, but it is really important because computers can hold so much information, they have to have some organizational sense so that they can go back and find the work, find the notes, find the things that they're doing and access it so that it's useful for them. Also, the technology that's available, whether or not they're using Canvas or Google, the Google Calendar, they should keep a calendar of assignments and tests and other due dates of work. And so whether or not they have an app or a planner or something else, the computer has many different options. And some students even like the old-fashioned journal and day planner that they can hold and write in. I actually still do that because I don't always like looking at the computer. I use my Outlook calendar, but I still also write things down. Students can review notes daily, whether or not they're writing them down or keeping them on the computer, reread sections of text that they are having trouble with, and they could join a study group. And I'll talk about that when I get to one of the features of one of the resources. But mainly, we hope that these things, if they do these things, they can stay on top of their work. And we're getting to the end of what I'm about to talk about, but graduation requirements. I want to go over this because a lot of parents have expressed, I would say, unknowing about what the graduation requirements look like. And I'm just going to go over this because the main thing to stress here is that high school is different from middle school. Students will not just graduate from high school. Sometimes miraculously, students move through middle school. Even if they have some bumps in the road, they can matriculate through middle school and get to high school. High school, you have to earn the credits in order to graduate. And students need 22 credits. They earn a half credit for each class by getting a passing grade. And freshmen earn 3.5 credits each semester and 7 credits by the end of 9th grade. So if you do the math, you can see that they can earn more than 22 credits in 4 years. What this means, though, is that students in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, if they earn all their credits, they have a lot of options when they are seniors to take electives, to do internships, and to do other things if they are able to matriculate and earn credit for all their classes. So I'm going to show you the classes that they need and the number of classes in any given subject area. You can see English is at the top with 4 years of English. They have to take English every year from 9th through 12th grade. And they can't, skip out of it. They can't say, can I take this and have it count as English? There's English 9, 10, 11, and 12. And whether or not there's an equivalent AP or IB course at that same grade level, those give them the 4 English credits they need. In social studies, they have to earn 3 credits. And it is required that they take US history, NSL, national, state, and local government, and modern world history, which is usually in the 11th grade. And then again, when they get to be seniors, many students really enjoy a lot of the social studies electives and other courses like peace studies and comparative religion. And so social studies has a number of electives that students enjoy. So even after they meet the 3 credits, even after they earn them, there's options for them. In math, they have to earn 4 credits, including Algebra 1 or 2 and geometry. And so students can take other, obviously higher level math courses, but these are the basic graduation requirements. So 4 years of English and 4 years of math. 1 credit earned in physical education, so that's 1 year of physical education. A half credit in health, and many students will do this as a summer online option because in a traditional year, students like to be able to take other courses, and health is one of those courses that the county does offer over the summer to a large number of students. They need 1 fine arts credit, and the electives 4.5 credits. So there are 9 classes that they will have to take to earn those 4.5 classes, and then 1 tech ed class. The counselor can give you more specific on that 4.5 credit option because they need to have a program completer. I'm not going to go into all of that tonight, but you can see that when you talk to the counselor, each year when your child builds the schedule, the first thing the counselor does is make sure they have the graduation requirements on their schedule. And then the counselor is going to work with the student, as will I, to make sure they are passing these graduation requirements so that when the time comes, they do earn a diploma. Other graduation requirements include state test. There's a state test in algebra, English 10, NSL, and there's the MESA, the Maryland Integrated Science Assessment. And so with COVID and with school closures, I don't know what those tests are going to look like and when they're going to reinstate them. If you have high school age children already, you may know that they did waive those tests in the spring because it was just too complicated. And so they gave students the credit. We don't know when they're going to be reinstated, but they are graduation requirements. They have been. And so unless the state, this is not a county decision, unless the state says there's an emergency waiver, then your students at some point will have to satisfy these state tests in order to earn a Maryland diploma. And then you see this little part down here at the bottom. They also have to earn 75 service learning hours. I'm going to go quickly through these last slides so that we have enough time to talk if you want to talk. The Media Center resources, every day, Mr. Bukowski runs a daily Zoom session. This is really important because if kids say, I'm having trouble with this technology, he is there and his staff to help them. No appointment necessary. This link is on the school website. So some of your students may have already joined him on occasion. But if you notice that they're struggling, say, have you tried this? It's a resource that they can get to. And his email is there. And like I said, this will be put online for you to reference. These are other Media Center resources that Mr. Bukowski offers. And if a student needs help, we have TAP, which is Time for Academic Progress, Barron's Accessing Teachers, which is BAT time. Wednesday office hours for teachers, and the writing lab. Students can access all of these to get help. And TAP in particular, as you know, it's teachers who are offering academic support to students. And those are the times and the subjects. So one of the things that we recommend is that if your child needs some structure and discipline, just have them join TAP, go to any of the sessions, and even if they say to the teacher, I am just here to do my homework and I will ask questions if I have them, the teacher is not going to bother them. They can just sit there, but it's a way to establish discipline and routine. So please use that. And a student might say, hey, I have some notes. I took some notes, but I don't understand what my teacher was talking about. They can get help from the TAP instructor. Also, if they go and TAP attendance, we're still trying to boost it up. They might go and find that they can ask that TAP person, hey, can you help me organize and create digital folders? My virtual world is kind of a mess. I want to get organized. Have them ask for help in these times when they can get help from teachers and TAP or during teachers' office hours. And so again, I'm wrapping up here. Students should strive for excellence, get involved virtually, make that positive impact, join a club, and plan around not being isolated and unfocused, because that is really hard. And before I stop screen sharing, I want to remind you that the virtual parent conferences are coming up next Monday and Tuesday from 12 to 3. We are asking parents who want these conferences with any teacher to contact the teacher. Some of the teachers are sending out invitations to students they feel they could just give a little more boost to. And these are not conferences for every student. These are conferences for students. We're trying to target students who are getting a C or lower in any class, and for whom the teacher can say, here's some things that you can do. So parents, this is your opportunity to talk to some of those teachers of subjects where your child could do better. And finally, we're trying to set up some mentorship opportunities for freshmen. The Minority Scholars Program students have approached us to ask if they can institute a mentorship program. And we are also thinking about a widespread mentorship program, since Link Crew is a little delayed in operating this year. But we know we want to do this for freshmen and have them connect. So I am going to stop screen sharing, and I'm going to open it up if you have any questions.